Mayor, members of council, for the consent agenda, you have 9 items in the packet. The first 4 items are minutes. You have the regular meeting minutes from November the 6th. You have special meeting minutes from November the 6th. You have closed session minutes from November the 6th. They've been distributed, will be collected at the meeting in a yellow copy paper. And then you have the workshop minutes for November 29th. Item C5 is a request from the North Carolina League of Municipalities to waive CityRec rental fees. And you can see inside your packet, this was a request. They're going to have a workshop in Belmont, and they would like the hourly fees waived. They're still good to pay for the general liability insurance and the deposit fee, so they're requesting that. The next item, C6, is approval of the Chronicle Mill Mural Agreement, and it's the Downtown Belmont Development Association wishes to enter into an agreement with Chronicle Holdings, LLC, allowing the DBA to go through the process and implementation of a mural on the Chronicle Mill parking lot. This comes about given that there's zoning conditions for Chronicle Mill to have an actual mural on the parking deck. So that process will go through the DBA. Chronicle Mill Holdings will write the check for $25,000 to the DBA so they can manage that process and pay for the actual design and the mural. Item C7 is the approval of amendment to the traffic calming policy. This item was presented at your November 6th meeting, where the staff went through and revised certain items inside that agreement. Item 3A was one recommendation. Staff made that change, and you can see that it's inside of the actual packet where you've got the criteria and guidelines in there. 3A is complete as recommended. When staff looked at item 4A, it was really hard to consider changing 4A, given that there's, and I'll just read what Bill Carroll, the Public Works Director, wrote in that paragraph number 2. I'm sure you've all read it, but I'll go over that again. It says, upon research, there's no clear way to delineate street sections in a way that can be applied consistently and clearly. When breaking down street length, only 27 streets are longer than 0.5 miles. Block lengths also vary greatly. Staff is of the opinion that section 4 to remain as written, and upon delivery of a petition results to the staff within the amendment process, staff will consider the street, the block lengths, and the geography to ensure petition requirements are not excessively burdensome. So that gives staff some flexibility when looking at the request and the length of the street, length of the location of the potential traffic calming device, and who should be considered inside the actual petition. So we just decided to leave that as it remains and let staff kind of work through that process as they come in. Item C8 is the Montcross Chamber of Commerce lease rate. Montcross Chamber has requested that we hold their lease rate at $525 per month as they move through an audit process. The current lease is $750 per month for the effective date of October 1st. You can see in here that they have made their request to me in a letter. And the final item, C9, is the approval of amended ordinance to close a portion of Belmont Street for the annual Christmas Village. The village was supposed to have taken place last Saturday. Due to the rain, they postponed that event to this coming Saturday. So this item is an amended ordinance authorizing the closing of a portion of Glenway Street for Christmas Village on December 9th from 11 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. And those are the items for consent.
Any questions on anything on the consent?
I have one just briefly on the Montcross lease. I just want to be clear, since the lease was effective October 1st at a rate of $750, I'm happy to agree to this. However, if you look at section 25 of the lease, it requires that any amendments to the lease be made in writing. So all I would say is that to do this, we would need to have an amendment to the lease agreement, and then I assume at such time as the audit is completed, another amendment to return to the $750. So I just, as long as it takes the form of a written amendment, that's fine. Yes, sir.
I had a quick question on item number 5. So, and it might just be Miles, just kind of understand why, but is there a particular reason why we'd be waiving the fee? Is this like an honor to have them here to do this? I mean, does this promote the rec center, or why would we be waiving the fee structure to the city rec center? And the only reason why I ask is because I think this thing's been of particular interest in regards to revenue generation.
Yeah, I think it's a chance to showcase the Belmont Rec Center, CityRec, and given that there'll be other municipalities attending their event, so you're drawing people to the city. I can't speak for them or why they want to waive the fee, but they will have other municipalities here that, of course, will patron the city as a whole.
Okay. I mean, is that something we want to have a discussion on? Because I'm just curious, if we don't waive it, do they have a second place to go?
I don't know the answer to that.
Do we have a, I'm trying to remember if there was a rate for like nonprofits in the fee schedule?
Don't think so. I think the fee schedule here. I don't recall if that's in the
I vaguely remember having some conversation about that, but I don't remember if we actually adopted anything along those lines.
I mean, I'm all right with this, but I'll leave it open to discussion if anyone wants to have further discussion about this.
About the fee waiver?
Yeah.
It does state that there is a nonprofit organization discount, 15% off the final cost for facility rental prices.
And again, it's up to the rest of the council. I mean, if it's just me, we can keep it on the consent agenda, but if we have a nonprofit discount fee, and we have a nonprofit that wants to use it, why don't we utilize that discount structure as opposed to setting precedent to just waive the fee in its entirety?
Good point. What's the fee?
The fee is, I think,
Yeah.
it's $105 per non-resident per hour. And I think they want it for like 6.5 hours, so $682, I believe.
And we're not talking about much, but
Right.
we have these fee structures in place for a reason.
And they asked me, could I waive it? And I'm like, no, I can't waive fees, so therefore, that's the reason it's only.
Yeah, I think you make a good point. The fee is there for a reason, the discount's there for a reason. You're already allowing for some discount for nonprofit status. I wouldn't be opposed to keeping that fee with the discount.
So maybe I'll make,
Just because of precedent, like you said, it makes that.
I'll make the motion to move C5 to D7 of the agenda, from the consent agenda to the agenda, regular agenda.
Do that for the regular meeting.
As long as everyone else is okay with that.
And
One item that I would like to see if we could open up for either discussion tonight or maybe pull from the consent agenda is item number 6, the approval of the Continental Mural Agreement. I noticed that in the back of the material, there are some drawings for where that mural would be placed. I didn't see anything as far as any type of rendering or description of what type of mural would be there. And I think even though that's a private entity, the DVDA is working with them on that, and if they're looking for our sort of tacit approval of the entire agreement, I think we should at least see some representation of what they intend. I don't know if you guys want to discuss that, but that was my thoughts, is maybe to pull it and just to have some discussion around it.
yeah, well, that's up to the group. I know, yeah, Miles and I kind of talked about this a little bit. Actually, Richard was there too. I I think the thought was to run the mural through the DVDA's, or the Main Street Program's design committee. They have an existing process for, I think, evaluating murals that go in downtown that he's officially involved with. So my suggestion was having one of the two council appointees that are on the DVDA involved in that. Throw that out there.
I'm fine to talk about, I mean, there's a sort of a history regarding this that we can talk about if you want to pull it.
Maybe let's pull it
Yeah.
off, that discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we would move
Is that
that
part of
from
it?
C6 to D8.
During the regular.
Yes.
Okay.
But that's where we'll put it.
Anything else? Okay. All right. I will now call the meeting to order. Jim, would you like to lead us in invocation, and Mark, if you would like?
Let us bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the blessings you bestow on our community. We thank you for the service of Marc Stowe and Marc Seelinger and all that they've done and given to the city during their years on council. We ask that you bless and guide our new council as we continue to perform the work of the city and make decisions for the benefit of our residents. And we ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Please join me for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we are going to recognize Councilwoman Martha Stowe, for her 16 years of service to the city tonight. And we have a lovely rendering of downtown. I'll show this for the audience. So, thank you for all you've done. I know 16 years is a long time to serve on a city council. It's no small feat, and Martha's got her hands in just about everything that the city does, so council is definitely going to miss her wisdom and her depth of knowledge on everything that goes on here, but I know you're not too far away, we've all got your cell phone number. So. Oh, okay.
Mark, don't forget the skate park.
Yes. Yeah, I think we still need a picture of that.
Kevin, enjoy it.
Thank you. Did you get that?
most of you know I love to talk, so I do have a few words to say. I've told my husband for years that he wanted his life to be dull and boring. He picked the wrong person. I will say to you, I've done everything I can to make your life less dull and boring. I've looked at the projects that we have. We've got the Riverfront Park, the rec center, this building, and the skateboard park. I'm really pleased to see how much progress we have made. But I want to make sure that I call attention to who's really important. We're up here making decisions and talking, and it's the staff who are making this happen. They are the ones who make us look good. They make everything operate effectively and efficiently. So the staff members who are here, please say to the other people as well how much we appreciate what you are doing, because it's not us, it's you. So thank you very much.
Mayor Seelinger, get the joy.
similar to Marc was here. I have a few words. So, Mayor Seelinger, on behalf of council, city employees, and citizens of Belmont, I extend a grateful thank you for your 4 years of service as councilman and recently as mayor. You worked hard to provide necessary feedback and to make sound decisions to better Belmont. We also thank your family for allowing you to be away from them to perform your role as a civil servant. We wish you nothing but the best in your personal, professional, and political career. Thank you again, Mayor Seelinger.
Thank you for everything you've done. I know it was no small thing to appoint me mayor in the situation that we found ourselves in 6 months ago, but I will say it has been the honor of my life to lead this council and the city in the interim. It's funny because, change, I guess, is really the only constant around here. If you think about where we were 4 years ago when we first took office, COVID was not even a thing. You think about where we were just a year ago, we're in between city managers, and 6 months later, we had a change in our mayor, so there was a lot of, it's always something going on here, but we've got a great council. I think the council that is just rolling off is one of the best that the city's ever had, and we've got an even better one on the way. So great things are happening here, and I look forward to hopefully working with you again here soon, within a year or so. But if you ever need anything, you know where to find me, and look forward to working with you again in the future.
I need pizza.
Yes.
City of Belmont get a discount for perpetuity.
We should probably work that out. I'll put you in touch with my boss. Okay, so next we're going to swear in the new and returning councilman. Are we doing these all at once? Separately. Okay, so first up is Councilman Jean Heffernan.
We have a motion to set
Oh, I'm sorry, I completely missed that.
Motion to set the agenda. Second.
Yeah, okay. All those in favor? All right, now Jim.
Where do you want it?
Yes, so everybody can see you.
Yes.
Left hand on the Bible, raise your right
Or
hand.
I should stand for pictures. Does that work? I, James J. Heffernan Jr.,
I, James J. Heffernan Jr.,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully discharge my duties
and that I will faithfully discharge my duties
as council person, so help me God.
as council person, so help me God.
That's it.
All right.
All right,
That's it.
Jason Rumfeld, you're next.
I looked at the middle name, so there's no
Oh.
I, Jason P. Rumfeld,
I, Jason P. Rumfeld,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
my duties as council person, so help me God.
my duties as council person, so help me God.
Congratulations. Charles M. Hill,
I, Charles M. Hill,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully discharge my duties
that I will faithfully discharge my duties
as councilperson, so help me God.
as councilperson, so help me God.
Okay, so the next item of business will be to accept Richard Turner's resignation of his council seat.
Does that require a motion?
I think he can just make a statement for the record that he resigned.
Okay.
And for the record, I formally resign my city council seat here in Belmont.
Okay, then you step forward and be sworn in as mayor.
I, Richard C. Turner,
I, Richard C. Turner,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
my duties as mayor, so help me God.
duties as mayor, so help me God.
Congratulations.
Yeah. She's all yours.
All right, I guess our next order of business is going to our organizational meeting. B2, we need to go ahead and elect a council member to serve as mayor pro tem. Are there nominations for mayor pro tem?
Yeah, I would like to nominate Ken Heffernan to the City Council of Belmont. Historically, we have picked the highest vote getter for the council position. Just keeping with tradition of the City of Belmont, I would like to nominate Ken Heffernan.
Second that.
All right, Jim Heffernan, nomination has been seconded. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you.
I need to swear you in.
Oh.
Please, you just- Would you like to hold the Bible again? Here we go again. Sorry, it's a blank, because I didn't want to assume. I, James J. Heffernan Jr.,
I, James J. Heffernan Jr.,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully discharge my duties
and that I will faithfully discharge my duties
as mayor pro tem, so help me God.
as mayor pro tem, so help me God.
Thank you.
All right, we next have adoption of a resolution establishing the regular meeting dates of the Belmont City Council for 2024.
Thank you, Mayor Turner and council members. Before you, you'll see that there is a resolution listing the dates of the regular council meetings in 2024, the council retreat in 2024, also the workshop sessions in 2024. There are a few days that fall on holidays, and they're listed inside your council packet. And so, based on the rules of procedure, the way it's written is that next available date is the date that those meetings should occur. So the resolution reflects those. And please note that February 16th and February 17th is the proposed council retreat dates. That's a little different than in years past, I believe, for Belmont City Council. I think it was towards the end of January in years past. This was my recommendation, if you all would allow, given that we have several studies that will be completed, hopefully at that time, with some numbers that will affect next year's budget. So I was requesting a few more days, a few more weeks in there before, so we can have a productive retreat. Turn back over to you, Mayor.
All right, with that said, we have a motion to approve these meeting dates.
So just one quick question. I'll just open this up to the current council to see if it deals in as well. For the workshops starting at 4 o'clock p.m., I mean, would anyone object to starting them at 5 o'clock p.m., just push them back an hour to allow for folks who are working regular? And I know, Jason, you've had similar issues as mine when you're speeding to get here. But at least pushing it back to 5. Is that okay? Okay.
I guess then I would make a motion to approve the calendar of meeting dates, with the exception that the time for the monthly workshop be changed from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Next we have P4, appoint elected officials to boards and committees for 2024. I think we had some discussion about possibly tabling this until the appointed cities fill.
Yeah, I think that'd be my preference. I think it's only fair to wait until we see the full council.
I think it's only fair for the.
Just as a point of order, then, I guess I'll move from alternate to delegate for the Central Regional Council Board of Delegates. Currently, Marc was the delegate for that. So.
Is that for central line?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess that would be the case. Yeah, I guess so. And everyone else would just continue fulfilling their current.
Well, hold on.
Well,
Keep Belmont Beautiful has Councilwoman Stowe as the main delegate and Turner is the alternate. So, Richard, you were mayor, you'd move up to primary on that one.
All right, do we need to put that in form of a motion to table?
So, well, do we need 2 motions to move the alternates to the main delegates and then table the, okay. So I would like to make the motion to move myself from alternate to delegate from Central Lina Regional Council Board of Delegates and move Mayor Turner from alternate to delegate for Keep Belmont Beautiful Board of Directors for the current committee appointment.
second.
All right, all in favor?
And I would like to make a motion that we defer the appointment of elected officials to boards and committees for 2024 until the full council is seated.
Is that fine, or does it have to be to a date certain?
It's supposed to be to a date certain.
So we could push it to January, and then if we don't have this person seated by then, we could always table it again, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your regular schedule meets January 2nd.
Okay. So I would make a motion that we defer the appointment of elected officials to boards and committees for 2024 until January 2nd, 2024.
I second that motion.
All right, we have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
We just might want to earmark that I needed to do again, so we don't have that seat.
Correct.
I guess at this time we'll move into our regular agenda.
Well, do we need to do the consent agenda?
Yeah.
I would move to approve the consent agenda with the exceptions of moving item C5, the waiver of the North Carolina League of Municipalities rental fees, to the regular agenda D7, and moving item C6, approval of the Chronicle Mill Mural Agreement, to item D8 on the regular agenda.
Second.
All right, second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. All right, we are now going to move into our regular agenda, beginning with public comment. Everyone who has signed up, I'll just remind you, you have 3 minutes to speak to whatever topic you have. First person we have up is Angela Street.
First, congratulations to those who were newly elected and raised. Oh, Angela Street, thank you. 2422 Emily Drive. So again, congratulations to the newly elected and re-elected. And I thank both current and past members for their service. It is a service. My public comment is in regards to the agenda item concerning discussion of process for appointment of vacant council seats. 3 city council seats were open to be filled on the November 7 ballot with a plentiful choice of candidates. Councilman Turner, whose city council term was not yet up, was voted by the citizens to be the city's new mayor, which will open up a 4th city council seat requiring appointment by the new council. I understand that it is within the city council's right by law to determine who will be appointed to this nonpartisan vacancy. While I highly encourage a process be put into place where adequate notice, opportunity, and consideration is given to ensure the city council's appointment is reflective of a decision the residents would have made. In the circumstances of this vacancy, you've really been given a great gift. On Tuesday, November 7, the date that produced the results that have given some of you this very right and created this very vacancy, the residents of Belmont exercised their right in an already well-defined process where every member of the community was given ample opportunity to apply, communicate their qualifications and their intentions. The residents then vetted the candidates and spoke by casting their vote. I can see no overarching reason in the case of this appointment for the newly elected council to suddenly turn deaf to the people's voice made clear on November 7 by a process far superior to any process council might not put in place. By all means, establish that process for future appointments where election results cannot be referenced. But for this appointment in question, the next highest vote getter in the November 7 election is indicative of the people's choice. Any delay of this appointment, of this choice, could result in there being an imbalance on council not really intended by our system of government, and a loss of good faith that our government is still highly supportive. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up we have Elizabeth Atterbury.
Thank you, Council and Mayor. Elizabeth Atterbury, 403 North Main Street, Belmont, North Carolina. I'm here tonight to invite each and every one of you to a new exhibit that the Belmont Historical Society are featuring now. The chapters of the Daughters of the American Revolution, the William Gaston chapter, the William Chronicle, the Peter Smith, Tryon Resolves, have put in a display at the museum depicting and honoring the South Fork boys, which all lived in this area, and they were instrumental in the defeat during the American Revolution at the Battle of Kings Mountain. It's fitting that this exhibit is at the museum because our museum sits on the property of William Chronicle and the ancestors. So we're excited to have this exhibit. The group will be there on December the 10th from 2 to 4 p.m. will be a reception. Also at that time, we will have our own visitors from our Belmont Police Department in conjunction with our Chief Corky Falls and several others. We have acquired on loan the first badge worn by an officer, L.A. Clemmer, from 1905. It's not a reproduction. It is the original badge that's come into our police department's possession. And we're having it on display temporarily, probably through the first of the year. So some of our police will be there, so I hope and extend an open invitation to come 2 to 4 on Sunday, December the 10th, which is this coming Sunday. We are located at 40 Catawba Street, 1 block over from Main Street. The museum is open on Saturday and Sunday. We're totally a nonprofit volunteer organization. We're operated by volunteers that come, and we open on Saturday and Sunday from 1:30 to 4 p.m. So I hope to see each of you there for some hot cider and some cookies and some visiting time with the DAR representatives and also our local Belmont police. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fix the sound system, we can't hear in the back. Right? Amen?
All right, next up we have Callie here.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time. Congratulations on the newly elected officials. Congratulations, Richard. My name is Callie Hare. I live at 304 South Central. The next item on tonight's agenda is about filling the vacancy on the council. I'm here tonight to ask that one of our female candidates is strongly considered to fill that vacancy. Martha Stowe received over 1,000 votes for mayor from the citizens of Belmont and has over 16 years of experience on council. Peg Argent received the 4th highest number of votes for city council. Therefore, she's the next runner-up after the 3 candidates elected to serve on the council. We have 2 highly qualified women to serve and are ready to serve. I believe council should consider Peg or Martha, who have support from so many citizens of our city. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, the last speaker is Amanda Wall.
Amanda Wall, and I live on Lancaster Drive, right across the street. Y'all know I'm not a big talker, so I'm just gonna try to get through it. Regarding the current vacancy, North Carolina law prohibits the release of employee files, meaning the general public will have no knowledge of matters discussed in closed session regarding former employees of the city of Belmont. And I had the privilege of overhearing many discussions during our recent campaign trail regarding a certain member of our community who ran for council. And after hearing from you members, who were in those meetings, off the record, I'm absolutely appalled by the support lended to him by the people sitting in front of me. Moving forward, the people of Belmont have already spoken. Their votes were cast, and Peg Argent was the next highest vote. She should be the next person in succession to council. Not only does her experience in social work provide a unique perspective, she would be our only woman representative. Marc Stowe chose not to seek re-election to council, and I believe her previous 16 years served have been enough. But I don't want to go ahead and do it on record. But failure to recognize Peg, again, like the previous person said, was just going to deter morale. It's not good. But just on a positive note, before I leave, I just wanted to bring an idea that I've had with the Historical Society, who also just spoke. I love that idea. I'm going to be there on Sunday, but we should get a city historian, someone who can be a liaison between the Historical Society, the Abbey, the Historical Preservation Board, and Gaston County local museums, our library, as well as other relevant institutions. Someone who can engage with, educate our citizens on our rich, colorful history of our small town. But congrats, you guys. Hope you see me around town. And thanks.
All right, that concludes our public comment. We are moving to item 2, which is a discussion on process for appointment to discussion.
I guess I'll start. I mean, just as for a conversation piece, in Parks, correct me if I'm wrong, council has 3 choices. You,
No, you got any choice, you're not limited to 4. Do whatever.
I guess there's 3 in my mind.
Okay.
But with that being said, I mean, I'd be curious to what everyone else thinks. I think, you know, potentially to voice, you guys were elected, Richard, Charlie, Jason, Jim. I think I was the only one, then we have your vacancy, I was the only one not in the most recent election, but I'd be interested to see, from my perspective, every council member potentially, or if you don't want to, you don't have to put up a nomination of some sort, and potentially interview process or something to that effect would be my recommendation. But again, that's just my voice of reason here.
Well, first of all, I don't want to do what we did in July, and I understand the circumstances are different, but, you know, as was mentioned, you know, and as I suggested back then, you know, we interview for every position on all our citizen advisory boards, and this is the most important position. So, you know, if we want to be deliberate about it and thorough, you know, I certainly think that an interview process of nominated individuals would be fine. I do, however, also, you know, the most objective thing to do would, you know, since there was just a recent election, just simply take the 4th place vote getter. So I think that that's an option. 2, that would certainly be objective. And I think either one of those options would be fine.
I like your idea, Alex, of allowing each current council member to nominate, and I would say maybe up to 1 candidate so that they don't necessarily have to nominate. Suppose they support, you know, someone that's already been nominated, they don't have to make a nomination, but I don't think it needs to be, you know, a dozen candidates and drag out for 6 months. So, you know, if we said maybe each council member could nominate up to 1 candidate, and then follow that up with an interview process with council to allow us to vet those candidates and them to vet us and, you know, make sure it's a good fit. I think that, I don't know if there's anything more that could be asked of us in making sure that we're looking at all available and qualified candidates and putting them through the interview process. And that would be my preference as well.
I echo a lot of what you guys just said. I like the idea of the nomination up to 1. But I really want to make sure we hammer home the interview. I think it's imperative that we do our due diligence. As Jim stated, I don't want it to seem rushed. So I agree that it should be a nomination and then an interview process.
And I mean, there's a couple of other things that echo what, you know, while, you know, we need to do our due diligence, we need to be deliberate, but, you know, at the same time, we don't need to, I don't think it necessarily needs to be dragged out like sometimes our committee appointments tend to be. So, you know, we certainly need to talk about that process because there's no reason, like I said, it's deliberate, you know, a good balance because, you know, there's no reason to set an artificial deadline to do this. I mean, we're talking about 2 years instead of, you know, 3 or 4 months, but by the same token, it doesn't need to be, you know, unnecessarily dragged out if that's the way we all want to go.
And to echo off that, based off of our board interviews, particularly if we were to offer 2 dates, I don't know how this would go, they need to be as close as possible. Because what we find with our community boards is we'll interview 6 people, and then a month or 2 later, we interview 6 people. And then you've almost forgotten if you haven't taken detailed notes of the previous. So, kind of in that mindset of what Jim's saying, I think it needs to be back to back. I think Richard can, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Richard can call a special meeting if needed for interviews or something like that, a workshop of some sort. I wouldn't be opposed to that. I'm trying to just kind of have that hindsight 2020 Because again, I don't want to have interviews and then a month later we do another interview.
Right.
That would be unfair to the candidates.
Yeah.
Why, if we were to move forward with the process and even nominate candidates this evening, we have a workshop on the 18th. Potentially that could be an interview date.
I mean, I think, this is just my opinion. Sure, we have the workshop coming up, do it then, but if there's any candidate that cannot make it, leave open to the option of someone calling a special meeting so that we can make sure that everyone can attend. Jim, you're saying timeout, what's up?
Well, I just, I think we're all sort of moving straight to this nomination and interview process, and I think that that's fine, but, I would be interested if that's the consensus, that there is at least some articulation of why we wouldn't just go with the next highest vote getter for the most recent election.
I mean, I don't disagree necessarily with that, but I do think that the delta, in my opinion, I'll just say the delta between the last vote getter to win and that vote getter was quite substantial. That's just my opinion. I mean, and take that for what it's worth. But I also don't disagree with the mindset with that. I mean, I think having an interview process is fair and inclusive to everyone. That's the council that was elected, so chooses to bring into the fold. At the end of the day, it's us that has to make the vote on that. So it would have to be, it could turn into 2-2, I guess. I don't know, we probably have to talk to Parks about what that looks like, and would it take 3 votes of council? I don't know those things, but, because we haven't had this situation before. But that's just my thoughts on that.
I wouldn't be opposed to including the next highest vote getter, in the process. But as long as we have that nomination and interview process, I think that even the next highest vote getter, is going to be put through the interview process as well. And I think we kind of like what you said, Alex, that because there was such a gap there between the next highest vote getter and the ones that were actually seated, that I think there's a need there to open up other potential candidates to include with the next highest vote getter in the process. I don't see any fault with that.
I don't either. I really want to hammer home our due diligence portion of it. I really think that it's imperative that we get this right, and I want to make sure that we're not rushing it, and I want to make sure that we're putting together all our due diligence, essentially. So I'm leaning toward a nomination where we all get a chance, and then do the actual interview process so that we're as thorough as possible. But to your point, Jim, I don't want to drag it out. I think it's imperative that we're expeditious with this.
So, for the process, does it require a motion itself?
Yes.
And it sounds like we're all in agreement, on at least the process should include the
So Jim, are you
nomination.
in agreement?
I mean, that seems like it's the consensus of everyone. I don't disagree with the due diligence. I just think it's important that if that's the way we want to go, that we are able to articulate why, we don't just say, well, let's just go with the next highest vote there. That's all. I just think it's important that, those are the options, and if we choose one or the other, we should have a good reason for doing that.
So would you say that's beyond what they've already stated and then want to exercise?
I don't necessarily think it's beyond what, I just wanted to hear the rationale for doing what we're doing. But
Well, the only thing I would say, I read the statutes and I know Parks has, just for everyone's information, the statute does speak to this process. It doesn't mandate that any process is chosen. It outlines several pathways forward, and it's at the discretion of council to make the decision on which pathway they're going to proceed.
this is not, I'm sorry.
And that could be the next highest vote getter, an interview process, direct nomination, as we did with Jason. The seat could be held open to the next election, which is really not an option because we're 2 years out. So while it does provide guidance and latitude, it doesn't behind us in any particular process.
And just to cover that, because I have talked to Parks about this, because that would be my preferred method, would be to push this to an election or special election. But the council runs itself at a liability by not filling it in 2 years. Is that correct, by a potential lawsuit of some sorts?
I don't know about a lawsuit, but the public has a reasonable expectation to have representation within a reasonable time.
One, and this is this is not necessary to decide for present purposes, because, we've got the decision that we're faced with tonight. But is it possible, I know the statute itself doesn't say anything about how council goes about filling it. Is there anything that would prevent us from establishing a policy that, this is what we do in future situations when this arises, so that we don't necessarily, there's some sort of guidance.
We could establish it, but then that existing council could then go out and turn around and change it.
That's true. I mean, that's true how a lot of things are.
No, I know, I understand that.
All right, well, I think we're at the point to where I need to ask for a motion on the process. And everybody's had an opportunity to speak to this. So,
I'll make a motion that each current council member has the option to nominate up to one candidate for the open seat. And that's followed up with, and we need to specify a single interview date or multiple.
Say, if you want to say the workshop and any other if the other dates becomes necessary.
And what date is that workshop?
18 days.
So the motion would be that we allow each current council member to nominate up to one candidate for the open seat. And then for those candidates to then be interviewed by council at the next planned workshop on December the 18th, and potential subsequent date if necessary.
all right, we have a motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? All right, motion carries 3-1.
And I don't disagree with what you all are doing. I was, I'm open, and certainly I understand how things work, and I'm prepared to make a nomination. But I didn't really hear anyone articulate a good reason. And that's sort of why I decided at the last minute to vote the way I did.
I'd like to go ahead and open it up with a nomination. I have talked to this person prior and they have confirmed, so I didn't want to state that before kind of the public station. I'd like to nominate Martha Stowe, considering her experience in the city council, also with the votes that she received. Her gap was similar to that of Charlie, I think, with the lower, kind of, if you're looking at it from the tier, 1,000 and something odd votes. So I would nominate Martha.
All right, let's go around the room this way with the nominations.
Very well. And I will say, though, that I support Martha's nomination, and I have a feeling that Peg Argent will also be nominated here, having spoken with some of my colleagues, and I support that as well. But I would like to nominate Joe Jordan, who is a lifelong Belmont resident, graduate of Belmont Abbey College, who has lived in North Belmont, South Belmont, and now resides in downtown, where he is an owner of, I believe, 4 different small businesses, a strong member of our community. He currently serves on the Main Street Advisory Board in the Downtown Belmont Development Association, where he is the co-chair of the Economic Vitality Committee, and I think as a small business owner and co-chair of the Economic Vitality Committee, he will be a tremendous asset and work very hard in supporting our businesses and bringing additional businesses to Belmont. So that would be my nomination.
Joe Jordan. All right, Charlie?
I would like to nominate Peg Argent. As we discussed here and heard from some of the public comments, she was the next highest vote getter. And I gotta say, I tip my hat to her. Throwing your name into the hat to want to be a part of city council and go through the campaign process is enough of it, I mean, it shows me that you care enough to want to be up here, and I think that that deserves at least a nomination. So for me, it would be Peg Argent.
All right, Jason?
I would like to nominate Catherine Lewis for the open council seat. Catherine is a Belmont native. She comes from a very familiar family here in town. Her parents are David and Kathy McKinney. Catherine has devoted much of her adult life to community involvement here in Belmont, particularly with our youth and youth sports programs. She and her husband John, who's also a longtime South Point volunteer firefighter, have owned multiple businesses, one of which is probably the most notable is the Belmont Little League football and cheerleading program, which they took over many years ago and have grown that to now include over 320 kids. It's a phenomenal program. If you haven't been down Boat Club Road on a Saturday morning in the fall, I encourage you to take a look because it's quite a spectacle. There's well over 1,000 people there on Saturdays. And, you know, as you might imagine, not all of these kids that participate come from families that can support their participation in these programs. But through creative support from Catherine and her husband John and their army of volunteers, they somehow find ways to keep having this program blossom to include any kid that wants to participate. So it's a phenomenal program. But in addition, Catherine's always been very active in the schools and PTO organizations here in town. She's on the board of the Miss South Point pageant and also serves as a youth minister at Cross Fix Ministries. I would add personally that as someone who also grew up playing Little League sports here, there are so many lifelong benefits that volunteers like the Lewises and so many other coaches and volunteers instill in our youth. It's not just about the wins and losses. I mean, we like to win here in Belmont, but you know, it's more about the values of discipline and teamwork and respect for others that can help develop these kids into productive citizens long after their sports careers are over. And then lastly, I know that Catherine, through our discussions, is equally passionate about her hometown. She's used to collaborating with others, teams of volunteers in the community, as well as other municipalities through some of the things that they're involved in to help advance whatever cause that she's involved in. As a fellow resident living off of South Point Road, I know that she's acutely aware of some of the most pressing challenges, including development, traffic, and youth sports. And for these reasons, I would nominate Catherine Lewis for the open council seat.
All right. That leaves us with the 4 nominees, Martha Stowe, Joe Jordan, Peg Argent, and Catherine Lewis, with the intent of the interviews being conducted at our work session December 18th, with the possibility to leave open an alternate date. The one thing I would say, I would hopefully encourage all the nominees and maybe staff to reach out to them and encourage them to be at that, try to make that 18th, and we can wrap it up in one day if possible.
Now, here's a question. Since that's in calendar year 2023, would that be at 4 o'clock as opposed to 5 o'clock?
I think we've already approved it for this year, so it's got to be 4 right here.
We'll approve next year.
It's still 4. Yeah. But obviously, we can work and be flexible to accommodate people's schedules.
Well, we catch somebody showing up at 4 and 5.
So we can handle
Do we need a motion for these nominees?
All right, so I think that wraps up that portion, which will take us to item number 3, the Rocky Branch Park Advanced Trails Project.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of council. We do have, I believe, a member of the Cardinal Trailblazers, David Baker, I believe, is going to make the presentation. Kevin can help me out. Someone here from the Trailblazers. Baker's in the back. Okay. They are ready to move forward with the final phase of the Rocky Branch Park project. I think there's 2 projects associated with this phase. One is a contractor-led project, the other is a volunteer build. Important thing here is that there's no cost to the city. This work is provided to volunteers and fundraising efforts. So I'll turn it over to Zip or part of the
I'm David Baker, and I'm the chairman for the Rocky Branch Park Committee, part of the Tar Heel Trailblazers. I'm a Belmont resident, live at 2219 Lexington Street.
Do you need to upload your presentation? I put some pictures of
you guys a little history. I know there's some new council members since this project originated. We started this back in December 2018 with a private donation. And I think what's important to point out is that in October 2019, City Council adopted the Rocky Branch Park enhancement project. And since then, the Tar Heel Trailblazers have been designing, fundraising, and constructing phases of the park in accordance with this plan. So what you see up here today on this slide is the current map of the park. I'll kind of go through a quick history of what's been built today. The red trail kind of runs through the middle of the park. Is a multi-use trail. It's the Carolina Thread Trail. And the green trail up to the top of the page is the Canopy Trail. It's a beginner mountain biking trail and hiking trail. And the blue trail kind of down to the bottom right. It's called Boulder. Is in its more intermediate mountain biking and hiking trail. And in 2020, when we started, or 21, when we started construction of these phases, Cramerton jumped in and decided to extend the park into Cramerton and lease some land from Stuart Kramer, and we built the Eagle Trail, which is a little more advanced beginner mountain biking and hiking trail. So to date, I've got some numbers here of what we've invested in the park. The town of Cramerton has a capital investment of about $105,000. The city of Belmont has about a capital investment of $170,000. And the Tar Heel Trailblazers have fundraised and contributed $204,000 to the project. If you consider the estimated value of the land that was leased from the Stuart Kramer High School, was estimated about $180,000, and then over 2,000 volunteer hours. We've got kind of a total estimated value in the park since the date of inception of this project of about $716,000. Some of that actual capital money, and some of that estimated based on volunteer hours and land lease. So today we're coming to you with the last phase of the project. It's the advanced zone in these two highlighted areas. This project's been broken up into two separate projects. In blue highlighted on the screen there's an existing trail we call the Legacy Trail there. And what we're going to do with that is extend the trail a little further into some open area of the park. Also reconfigure it so that it begins and ends at the Advanced Trail Hub. Right now it has a couple of entrances and a couple of exits. So this will make the trail a little more intuitive for riders and hikers. And then as far as capital investment, we are planning in the orange area to do a professional trail build. This is kind of intention is to capitalize on the best topography of the park to build a gravity-fed downhill trail. And we've got a construction proposal from Community Trail Design and Trail Dynamics in collaboration. And for those that don't know, Community Trail Design was the trail professional that actually came up with the original master plan, worked with Tar Heel Trailblazers, the city, and Parks and Rec Board to design this concept. And so we've got a proposal for $105,000 to build that phase. The estimated time, depending on weather, is about 30 to 60 days. And the Tar Heel Trailblazers currently have been focused on fundraising this year, and we have $110,000 in our account. So we're planning to fully fund this project 100%. No investment to the city. And we still have fundraisers going on through the end of the year. So I think that's it. So just wanted to say thanks to all our volunteers, everybody that's contributed to the project, been out there and helped us maintain, and just to note that Tar Heel Trailblazers do maintain the majority of this park for the city with their volunteer force, and then the whole committee that's put a lot of hours in on this project. and I hope you guys can support the construction of the final phase. Open it up to questions and feedback.
All right, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Baker? Is it?
It's a really impressive project. I commend you guys for the work you've done.
Thank you.
With respect to what you're doing on the advanced trail, is that, when this is done, is that going to be it? I was a little bit, I think in some of the materials you said, well, it could be a whole big ordeal, and so we're going to do this now. So is there the potential for anything to expand it or improve it later? Or are you saying, like, when this is done, this is it?
There is some other area, I don't know, Jamie, you can skip to the other map that I think's in there. So there is what we call subzone B, which is in green, but what the committee decided to do is to really focus our capital investment on the blue zone because of the topography that's there. Green, based on the estimates we got, we think it's probably a better area to explore for volunteer build maybe in the future, so there are possibilities, but not really intending to spend a lot more capital in that area just because of the terrain.
And I apologize if you mentioned this, but I know there was a private landowner that has is this on that land?
This is on that, and that's part of the theory behind the implementation strategy and doing the hybrid build with the volunteers. We did talk to the property owner, and right now we have the MOU with the city to use the property for trails, and she has no current plan to sell the property. So we've talked to her along the way and told her what we were doing.
And refresh my recollection, is there like any sort of formal agreement with her, or is it just,
Yes.
Yeah. And what's the status of that?
I would have to check the records and see. I think it's kind of going to be up probably next year to do test some waters on that.
Yeah, I think it's every 5 years, and then the city has at least from what I remember, the city has the first right of purchase if she decides to sell.
Oh, very good. My only other question at this time, the flyover bridge, that's interesting. What is going to be the impact on, I think you call it the legacy, or the basically that's the walking trail, the one that
thread trail. Yeah.
The thread trail. Is that going to have an impact while you're constructing this bridge over it?
Yeah, we talked about that with both Trail Dynamics and Community Trail Design, and they recommend and we agree that we'll have to close the trail for a couple days, just during that portion of it. We looked at a lot of different strategies for not, what we could do and not build that. And it really just limits the function of the trail without having that gravity drop in, because we're so limited with space on the property. I mean, just in size. So we would lose a whole about 1/4 of the trail effectiveness without having that. So we all came to the conclusion that it was worth the investment.
Was this on the CIP?
Yeah, yes, it was.
How much was it envisioned to?
You didn't have a cost estimate for it.
Okay.
You just said they would be doing fundraisers, and once they reach that limit, they'll be able to do this project, then we will move forward based on the CIP.
Well, we certainly are impressed and appreciate the fact that you've raised all the money, 100% by private donations, and that's well done, and you're, just a great job.
I want to maintain this. Is it the cities where they're located, or for someone that's new to the conversation, is it who will own and maintain this?
So the Tar Heel Trailblazers actually have an MOU with the city as well, and the agreement is that the city maintains the thread trail, which really is minimal at this point, and the Tar Heel Trailblazers maintain all of the single tracks. So if we have erosion or we need to blow leaves, all our volunteers handle that stuff.
What about like from a liability standpoint? What does that fall on?
It's still covered under our liabilities, and it is a city-owned park.
Okay, that's what I'm saying.
but we didn't have any major problems out there.
No, not that you would, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I know that we had to have the insurance adjuster out there after we built the
Right.
every time we build the trail
Sure.
to evaluate it, yeah.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Great work.
Yeah, it's an awesome project, for sure. I definitely appreciate it.
Well, I would just add, it is a great trail. I do appreciate all your efforts and trailblazers, what you've done out there. We walk the trail pretty frequently. One thing I might add, and I think we touched on this, something to consider, on the shared trail, we have been walking, and there's some blind spots when you're walking around the corner, and we've got some folks, we've run some folks just on bikes, flying through there to get to the trail. I don't know how you can mitigate that, whether on that one shared trail, if you could establish some sort of speed limit or put up some caution signs, because there are some areas there where you all of a sudden meet without any full warning, somebody's moving rapidly on their bikes.
Yeah, we can do that. We don't have any on the current thread trail right now. We do have it on the main trail sign that bikers are supposed to yield to walkers, but
Okay.
it wouldn't be a bad idea to add some signs. And we're gonna update signage with this new project, so we'll have to, we've got some work to do to get donor recognition back up on the donor wall. We'll have to update the park map, and then we'll go out there and sign the trail, so we can add that to our list of signage.
Are you saying
If
that
that's
that's
something.
a line and turn?
Well, I know there's been some times I've been walking with my wife, and yeah, just all of a sudden, guys on bikes will appear flying around the corner, and you gotta kind of leave quickly out of the way.
Yeah, and we've looked for, there's a few opportunities, if you look at the map, that we've tried to provide little bypass trails off of the main trail for bikers to go, so they can ride some single track and get back to the hubs quicker without, taking some of the bike traffic off the thread trail, but
Can you use those bubble mirrors that you see on like a golf course or something? That could,
possibly, I talked,
Get you
the one
around.
blind corner
yeah.
that I know of for sure is there in Cramerton, right there on the ball field. And then we've talked to them about maybe putting a mirror there, at least a warning, to slow at that corner, because
I mean, I don't think it's an epidemic, but it does happen periodically, you know.
Just for point of clarification on the insurance requirement that you're asking about, per the MOU, the Trailblazers do carry, general liability insurance at $1 million, so just want to make sure that's clarified. We do carry that.
Is that just during the construction, or is that ongoing, or?
They name the city as additionally insured, for the term of the MOU. So if the MOU goes away, they don't have insurance anymore, but for the term of the MOU, we're listed.
And the red dotted line represents, the trails that can be shared by hikers, right? So that kind of spans the entire length of it virtually, right?
yeah, actually all the trails that are built to date are hikers are allowed.
So even when it says like biker prioritized, you're still allowing hikers on those?
Yes.
Okay.
It just means, the red trail bikers are gonna yield to hikers, so they need to slow on that, and then hikers need to be aware on the other trails that there are bikers out there. They might be riding at high speed, so they should yield to the bikers.
Well, again, it's a great trail. I mean, when I walk it in the fall, I feel like I'm in the mountains. And it's kind of like really in the city. All right, so with that, do we have any more questions or comments? What are you looking for here, Miles? I think I saw something about approval.
Just for the record, it might be nice to have approval, just so that they can move forward with, construction and their volunteership to construct these two new trails.
Do you need to inform a motion or just general consensus?
I think a motion would be good.
Motion to approve is presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
guys. All right, next up we have item 4, review the status of Chronicle Street parking lot, planning and design.
Thank you. Earlier this calendar year, we went through our capital improvements programs, new projects get added to the list. And one of the projects that was added this year was for a parking lot on Chronicle Street, just south of the police station. The property that is all, it's on the west side of Chronicle Street, that's all owned by the city of Belmont. At that time, I prepared a cost estimate of over $2 million for the construction of a parking lot fully improved like you would expect to see in downtown Belmont. That included curb and gutter, paving, stormwater control measures, because it does fall in the watershed area, and several other things. It was determined that that was more money than what we budgeted this year. So this year, we budgeted $275,000 to build that. Now, in order to get a project that fits within that budget, we reviewed the requirements of our land development code, which requires a lot of these items, curb and gutter, landscaping, and everything else. And they do have one section in the land development code that they call overflow parking lots. And those are parking lots that are meant to be used on occasions, and there are events downtown that require additional parking. And the advantage of the overflow parking lot is it can be a gravel parking lot without curbing or any of these other features. And the biggest advantage of that was we would not have to worry about stormwater control measures, because we would use a pervious pavement, which would be stone, and water can soak into that and it wouldn't run off as quickly. In doing that, I prepared the exhibit that you see on the displays here. And even with the budget of 275, that wasn't going to be able to get enough parking for maximizing the property that the city owns. So I did divide it into two phases. Phase one that provides phase one that provides 62 spaces, and then phase two in the future is 74 additional spaces. And based on this size of the lot, I believe we can move ahead using the current budget amount of $275 and go ahead and proceed with this. It is, I think it's appropriate, considering that this parking lot would not be used daily, particularly, probably primarily when we have events downtown, and it would be used for that overflow parking. So with that in mind, Miles has asked me to present it to you with the idea that you give us authorization to proceed with this. It'll take a little bit of effort because we'll need surveys of the property, primarily to determine the slope of the land and where the moisture is going, so we can properly lay it out. And then go from there, and then seek out contractors that can do it. It'll be simplified considerably from what would be necessary if we followed the land development code for fully improved parking lots like you have at Harris Teeter and Walmart, places like that. So with that in mind, I'm requesting the city council give the nod that we move ahead and work with this. Now, in the future, let's say after phase one and phase two are done, we can come back and pave it as necessary, but this would get us place, 4th of July parking, there's never enough in town, things like that. Some of our downtown events are getting pretty big these days, so we want to make sure we can provide that. Parking spaces. It's pretty well lit down that way. They would probably put in some wood wood poles with lights, make sure that the parking lot is well lit and you can get down to the top of the street and then out from there into downtown.
So there would be additional lighting as part of the,
It would not be decorative lighting, it
Yeah.
would just be powerful.
Sure. do you foresee any type of limitations to access for this lot? Will it just be open all the time, or?
That's a good question. I think there wouldn't be a problem with it being open all the time because it's a little further from downtown than most people would be comfortable for walking. But, if that became the case, then we have to do something. I don't expect we to have overnight parking in there. We can restrict that. But, we certainly don't want trucks designed as a park overnight things. So
Is it just through like signage, or would there be some?
yeah, with signage.
It'll be right next to the police station too.
Yeah.
Violations.
It's just out of curiosity, because I believe I brought this up last time, is there any potential partnership with the Chronicle Mill itself, the apartment complex? The apartment complex is right down the street, and how I understand it from some of the residents is that there's some parking issues as it stands today with that development. So I don't understand, maybe they utilize this parking lot as an auxiliary. So with it being right there, is there an option as a cost sharing with the Chronicle Metal?
I can't answer that question. I think our planning department might have a better handle on that.
You see that, the existing, you said the existing parking lot right there on that map? That is currently where, that area was approved by Chronicle Holdings, and they're using that right now as part of their, parking requirements per code, I believe. Is this correct, Tiffany? And so we're working, Parks and I are working with, the Chronicle Mill Holdings team right now, for a lease agreement for that space, because I think they're gonna improve another area across the street where the Chronicle Mill is in the next couple of years. And so, Parks and I have been, meeting with that group over the past, 2 months or so, and we're to the point now, we think probably within the next month, we'll be bringing some kind of, parking lease agreement to the city, so that'll allow them to use that existing parking lot versus existing parking lot there, that's city property already. And so, I think that will satisfy their parking requirements for zoning at that time, but we have not discussed moving forward with, moving into phase 1 or phase 2 with the gravel lot with them.
So you foresee this primarily as an overflow lot, like primarily for special events downtown?
Yes.
I guess to your point about maybe some of the challenges they're dealing with at the Chronicle with parking, are you concerned that if we, even just with phase 1, that might become more of a Chronicle Mill resident parking for overflow, and then when we have a special event, there's no actual room for special event parking?
That's my concern.
That would be my concern, is that it would turn into an overnight parking lot. I think we could limit the parking there for like the number of hours, instead of like no overnight parking, for example. We probably could post it that states, no longer than X number of hours of parking there. And I think that we can monitor it to see if there are folks that are parking there for extended periods of time, just continue to monitor it, and then, I guess, deal with the situation as it arises. That would be my opinion right now. Build it to see what happens to it, and then post it if we need to, as far as like overnight parking, or truck parking, and then limit like the number of hours of parking. Tiffany, you were going to say something?
Sure, I was just going to add that one of the things to consider is that Chronicle Mill does have local businesses that are operating on the first floor. And so I believe what we would likely see is that a lot of the residents would have their own defined spaces as part of their lease agreements, but you would see some fluctuation in parking because of visitors, businesses, or customers of those businesses. And those are things that we traditionally do allow for parking in our public lots. So I understand in terms of limiting the hours of operation overnight, that makes sense. And certainly it's up to council, but I did want to share and remind that some of those people that are parking for Chronicle Mill are our residents that are supporting and choosing to support one of our local businesses that are operating in the first level.
That's a good point.
I just want to add a comment to that, because that was discussed when the carnival came around, and we were worried about the parking not being sufficient, but they said that the solution was the residents would be leaving to go to work, which would open up their spaces for retail customers, and that's how we were able to go with minimum parking.
Sure, and that very well may be true. As you all recollected earlier this evening, there's been some changes since when that project was originally approved in the environment, and that they couldn't have foreseen the fact that we might have more people working from home now than what we were originally intended. But that being said, the existing parking lot that Miles had alluded to before, that would be sufficient to meeting all the required parking that was contained within their conditional zoning. What we would be talking about is minimally anything above and beyond that. And also, they are, just to make sure that you guys are aware of this, I know we had heard some concerns as well about utilizing the parking lot that's not on the city property, but directly in front of that facing Catawba, and individuals utilizing that parking lot and crossing across Catawba. I'm working with that development team to install a mid-block crossing that's safe and meets NCDOT standards, so that we can make sure that's in place before finalizing their full parking package as well. So we have a few things going on to making sure that we can have parking that's more comprehensive in nature for that project to finalize all of the components as needed for their continued successful operations. But I just wanted to make sure that we did point out that there have been some changes from the time of that initial approval to now that we couldn't have foreseen, but also I think we have an opportunity to partner with them for their success.
If I can follow up, I just have a question, I guess, on the verbiage. We're citing 9.6 of the Land Development Code, which says that this can be used for overflow parking or off-street parking for special event parking.
That's correct.
Okay, so it stipulates these are the uses.
That's correct.
Okay, and we're doing that because of cost.
I believe there was a variety of factors that went into Jerry's recommendation. Cost, I believe, is one of them, along with, as he was sharing, the perviousness of the material.
Sure. But I mean, for argument's sake, let's just say cost.
Sure.
So we're using the Land Development Code, which has specific definitions that if you use the impervious surface, it is permissible for these two items, overflow and special event. But now we're talking about how we can use it for every day. So I mean, are they not contradicting each other?
That's really up for council's direction to staff. I believe what Jerry's presenting is a proposal that fits within the council's approved budget. Our Land Development Code outlines guidance for how we would design parking lots that are of a more permanent nature, that are intended for more than just overflow. But again, there are cost considerations when looking at that. So from my understanding, if the primary purpose is overflow parking and an occasional overflow occurs, that's not necessarily in contradiction with the ordinance. But if it's intended for ongoing and repetitive use for more than just overflow parking, then we might want to look at upgrading it in the future if that need becomes available.
And that's the ultimate goal for this project, is to have it paid at some point in the future. But I instructed Jerry to design it towards the budget of $275,000. And what I didn't want was that Jerry designs a project and then we bid it, and then on the ground is a gravel lot, and you all said, where's the parking lot? You know, where's the asphalt and the decorative street lights and the screenings and all that kind of stuff? If we did that, it would kick into some of those things that Jerry was referring to, where there'd be stormwater measures, and then that cost would be a whole lot higher than $275,000. So that was really my instruction to Jerry, would say, let's stick to the budget. What can we get from $275,000? And that's where that phase one comes in. The way I anticipate this thing to go is that phase two would be probably bid as an alternate, probably a bid alternate where we can see where that cost falls. And when we bring that back to council for the contractor approval, you can see that you'll have the base bid plus alternate one would take us above the 62 spaces. And so at that point, you could get more spaces than just 62, but right now, based on the estimate, is what we're thinking, that we need to bid the project as a gravel lot for overflow parking for 62 spaces to meet that $275,000. in future years, we include, a phase 3, which includes, asphalt and street trees and, islands and decorative lighting and things like that. We just have to include that in the CIP at that point, if that's the direction of the council.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I have one last thought. Is the city able to waive some of these requirements for the construction of this lot if it's deemed that it's in the public interest to provide that parking? Would that be something feasible to look at to bring the cost down for something, just go ahead and do something more permanent now?
That would be a question I would work through probably with staff and city attorney to see if we could waive certain requirements based on land development standards if the city is taking them on ourselves. I don't know the answer to that.
I don't either, it's just a thought. I mean, I know we do require it as a for-profit business, but we're not for profit and we're trying to provide a public service.
That's an interesting question. Because it's like, I feel like if it was somebody private, wouldn't they have to seek a variance? But does the city seek, I mean, that's a very puzzling question.
Traditionally, we subjected ourselves to the same rules as we require both.
So to do this, we'd have to seek a variance from the Board of Adjustment.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, we hadn't looked into that angle of it. There's might be some waivers. He's asking about waivers.
Yes.
Of the variance. The variance has different statutory rules that, I don't know that would meet the requirements of the variance. Mayor's question is, are we able to waive our own requirements for ourselves? Right?
Yeah, to waive them under the auspices that is for a public good or a public interest.
We can check into that.
And then do we want to table until we find an answer?
Probably table this until we understand where we are.
If we went down that path of having an impervious pavement structure there, I think it might kick in some engineering that we'd have to consider as well, given the runoff, to see if stormwater control measures need to be installed along with, I think it was a pipe underneath the railroad that we're in consideration that may need to be upsized. So there's a few things that go above and beyond. Once that discussion is had and if that decision made in council, then we would turn to an engineer to say, hey, can we do this by just paving it and not causing like a major runoff event somewhere else?
The existing pipe that runs under the railroad dumps in the low area down there by Primal. And if we increase the pipe size under the railroad, then of course we're taking more stormwater down there and cause flooding problems down there. So anything, that's why we would have to have stormwater controls if this was paved. Because the runoff would increase and the rate of runoff increases.
So, yeah, motion to table, I mean, how
When
long?
would you like to table it to?
Well, that's up to staff, I mean, how long do you think it would take to?
We'd like to have the answer on waiving things sooner than we can, how much this project would actually cost us. So if y'all like a decision on like the waiver piece, I think we probably could bring that back probably at the next council meeting, I would think, attorney. And at that point, you'll have an answer which would kick in the other engineering side of it, which goes down that path of, determine how much the project would cost at that point. But yeah, if you want to table it for, let us find the answer to that next month.
Does anyone offer a motion?
Motion to table to the January council regular council meeting.
We have a motion?
A second?
We have a second, all in favor?
Uh,
All right, motion passes. Thank you, Jerry. All right, up next, we have the Gaston County Economic Development Commission appointment request.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. This item was before you at your November 20th workshop. Given that the EDC has changed their bylaws to have appointment from each municipality over the next 60 years. And so Belmont's the first on the list as a rotating schedule, and Mr. Hicks states that the appointment can be either a staff member or a council liaison to the Economic Development Commission.
So we motioned to table this last meeting for the new city council members to be able to participate on this. I don't think we decided if it should be council or staff, so I don't know if we're going to try to make that decision tonight.
To be clear, under Article 4, it's a non-voting seat that they're looking to fill. Right? 4 seats?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And so Alex, what you're saying, we refer this to one of our committees on this?
Well, I mean, we could, but keep in mind that's going to be a 2-year position. And what we brought up last time as well, is this is what, a 3-year commitment? And ideally, we would want someone that could fulfill the full obligation in 3 years as opposed to 2 years in, and I don't know what happens, city reappoint someone or something like that, I don't know.
In that case, we have 3 available candidates.
I mean, that's just my mindset. Or staff.
Staff, yes.
That's why I said, we got to figure out if we want to council and or staff. Again, my reason for thinking we should do maybe a council member is just particularly because we historically haven't been at the seat of those, I think staff's done a good job, but we haven't been at the seat with negotiating those bigger projects, particularly when it comes to economic development. And I do believe it's been on multiple council members' platforms to try to cultivate that in the city of Belmont, particularly in North Belmont, where there is an industrial park. So that was just kind of my thought process on that.
I agree with having some input on the EDC, but it's a non-voting position, so really, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
you just figurehead for the city on the board, or what?
Probably at the discussion table, right? I mean, I don't know, I've never been on. I'll leave that up to y'all.
I mean, if we're gonna restrict it to someone who can serve full 3 years, then that would be the 3 councilmen. We're on a 2-year cycle.
No, I know.
Or staff.
Or staff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, put it this way, Jim, Charlie, or Jason, or any of y'all interested in that?
When did they say they met? They met at some sort of weird time, like during the day, I thought.
The second Tuesday, every other month at 12 noon, bi-monthly meetings. What was that? So the regular meetings of the EDC shall be held on the second Tuesday of every other month at 12 noon, bi-monthly meetings.
Would you want to refer this to a staff member? Doesn't seem like there's.
No, I'm pretty restricted with my work schedule with that time slot, but.
I mean, noon is gonna be a difficult time.
I'll do it.
We'll do it?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay. Do we need,
So I'll make the motion to nominate Jim to the Gaston County Economic Development Board.
second? We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Now, if you tell me the next meeting's tomorrow, then I have some issues, but, that's fine, yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Well, I guess it's not the second Tuesday, so.
All right, with that being resolved, we'll move to item 6, which is the East Belmont rebranding discussion.
Roll time.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you are the outline of the 3 districts within the Main Street program that we oversee. The names of these three districts, they precede my employment here with the city over 5 years ago. So the three districts that we work in and oversee, the green is the historic downtown, the yellow is the Chronicle district, and the blue is what we have referenced as the River District. Last year, when we received the $25,000 Duke Energy grant and was able to leverage that grant with additional monies to do the facade renovation work in the River District, that really brought up and started resonating with the residents in the area, really appreciative of the work that we were doing, but still not happy with the name River District. So the board at that last year started doing our due diligence and trying to find out where did the name the River District come from, why did we name it that, why were we referencing that. So we spent a lot of time talking with previous staff that were here, Shelley DeHart, old planning director, Adrian Miller, the previous city manager, board members, some of the previous council members, Ryan Schrift. We really could not come up with a real reason as to why we really started referencing this as the River District. There was just kind of some stories here and there. So internally, we started talking about why not reference the district with a name that was more aligned with the community. So during that time we started talking, we actually had conversations with a lot of council members. We had a lot of conversation with Alex during that time, since he actually lived in East Belmont. And a lot of the names on social media, when we were posting pictures with the work that we were doing, a lot of the names started coming out, East End, East Belmont, and that was the two names that really kind of surfaced the most in dealing with the district. And so the Main Street Board, would really like to rebrand, and so we had really, some long, lengthy internal conversations, and so now it's kind of coming up to you as council members. And I even, during that time when we were doing our due diligence, was trying to ask any of our council members during that time, did these names ever really, the River District Chronicle, ever really surface to council for approval? And really never could come up with a good answer. So we're here tonight to ask you to consider working with us in rebranding the River District to something that reflects more of the history and the people of East Belmont. So I know we had a lot of conversation with Councilman Zooks during this time, and I know that you actually spoke to a lot of the residents in the community, the ones that didn't really come out on social media. And so would you like to chime in as well?
Yeah, no, I mean, first of all, I appreciate you guys doing this. Me and Phil have talked extensively about this, and obviously my feeling should be that it should be reverted back to East End, East Belmont, because that's what it is. A lot of the folks I want to speak to this is whenever I lived there and obviously did a lot of the door knocking for the campaigning, felt slighted as if this was gentrification of some sort, and their history was being all gone by us rebranding it, whatever reason why, to the River District. So I think this will pay homage back to what it should be and what it currently is today, because I don't think myself I've ever called it the River District, and I do that to a point. And not to slight any of the reasons of why it was originally done, I just don't think it ever made sense. So with that being said, I would propose that it is East Belmont, but maybe from a district perspective, call it East End, as the natives of that area do call it that. So
That's the two
my
most
proposal.
common monikers that I've heard growing up, is East Belmont or East End. To me, River District should look, to me, I think about the development across the river, river that we're doing in Charlotte by the same name. I don't know if there's any preference for one or the other, East Belmont or East End. I mean, East End kind of has a ring to it. You think of South End and Charlotte, and but a lot of people refer to it as East Belmont. I mean, you guys have any indication? Is there a preference between the two? Or?
I go for East End just for the reasons Alex stated.
That's from the discussions I've had. I mean, I would encourage everyone to have discussions.
You talk to the residents.
Yeah.
again, I think, again, it pays the homage to that area. And again, it should probably have been done.
Yeah, I commend the engineer, at least doing the due diligence to change it back to what it was. I know a lot of people aren't happy with it, so.
Tyler, I want to hear what you just said.
I've been here all my life, 34 years, it's always been East End.
See, there we go. I think this brings it back home. And what a great way to do it with the partnership that we have done in East Belmont for the revitalization of the downtown area, to rebrand it, will actually bring it back to its original brand, at least.
Unbranded.
Yeah. Re-rebrand.
Yeah.
I do think, I fully support this. I believe that will entail repainting the water tower, which says River District on it in large letters.
We've had some conversation about that. We could reach out to the tools. I mean, I believe they received a grant from planning and zoning to do that. So I don't know. I could try to come up with some grant money somewhere to incentivize the rebranding of the water tower.
For myself, I like both options. I like East Belmont and East End. Campaigning, like you in East Belmont. I heard people saying, you know, this is East Belmont. It was kind of split, East End and East Belmont. I don't really have a preference other than East Belmont, it does have Belmont in it. Don't have any deal.
So you need any direction for a single name, or are we okay giving either one and then let staff decide?
We're going through the wayfinding sign. We have that done at CIP right now for updates to all the wayfinding signs. And so I think it's better to have one, whichever one that is, just because we have a wayfinding sign that we need to repair.
I'll make the motion to do East End.
Second.
All right, motion second. All in favor? All right, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
I second.
All right, with that resolved, we are going to move to D7, which I believe was C5, moving to D7.
Correct.
The discussion regarding the waiver of the rental fee for the leading municipalities. Is that right?
Yes. By all means.
Again, and Charlie and even Jason, there's been a lot of conversation with the budget meeting in the past in regards to understanding the viability, the financial viability of the rec center. And, one of the big strategic goals I thought for the council was to ensure that we're renting it out and utilizing that function. My concern with this is that we're setting precedent that we are willing to waive fees, but also, as we mentioned, we have a fee structure already existing for nonprofits, not-for-profits, and things like that. So, I would vote, in my perspective, I would not approve, in my opinion, of allowing this for free. I think this should hit the fee schedule as we set as council collectively, but that's just my 2 cents.
What was the discount?
15%.
15, yes, 50%.
I would agree with that, Alex.
So let me ask Jamie, since you were on the email chain, what prompted, if you know, the request for just like a complete waiver of the fees?
So from what I've gathered, is they move around in different areas to hold this meeting. It's for the risk management team. And they charge a minimal amount of fees to the government people that attend. I think she said it was $10 that they charge them total. And so they try to partner with municipalities or other government organizations to move these meetings around in different, probably my guess is probably different regions for people to meet. So it's a business meeting of theirs, and they try to keep costs low for the municipal governments that are attending.
And obviously, we are a member of the North Carolina League of
We are.
Municipalities. So I understand what Alex is saying, and I certainly appreciate that, and I think we'll have more discussions about these topics going forward. But I feel like the League of Municipalities might be a different animal since we were a member, and it's not just any nonprofit. It's not like, just some random organization. It's an organization representing municipalities, which we're a member. And so, to me, maybe that warrants some special consideration in this instance.
But I will add membership that we pay into.
I think they would say that if they don't keep the costs low for things like this, they're going to have to pass the costs on to the government organizations that are within it. I think is probably what you would do here not. Because they're trying to keep the price low is what I gathered.
Any more thoughts or discussion?
Not having been a part of the whole conversation, but just hearing what I've heard, I echo what you're saying. I don't want to set the precedent where we're picking and choosing who gets the fee waived. I think that's not a good way to go forward. I mean, there is that discount there. Maybe we could talk about the actual discounted rate, but I don't think we should be in the business of picking and choosing who gets what for free.
I just, Jim brings this up quite a bit sometimes, but, we put ourselves in positions where we pick and choose when we want to do something when we don't. And I feel like this is a prime example of the first time we're doing this, and we're going to set the first time, the first request as the precedent. That's my concern.
All right, does this request then require a motion and a vote?
I would assume it would, since it's on the regular agenda.
All right, let's wait till Jason comes back.
Just waiting on you.
All right, so at this time, if someone wants to put forward a motion, unless Jason has anything else to say.
Someone's got to make a motion.
I'm not making a motion to approve it.
You can make a motion not to approve it.
I mean, is there anyone that wants to approve it, then? I mean, are we consensus at this point? Then I guess motion to, Jim, motion to reject, I mean, the request for the Waive CityRec rental fee, or fee.
I'll second that. All right, motion and second, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes.
And, maybe this is an opportunity that we look into our fee structure again as it comes to the budget, but I just, again,
I'll second that.
don't think it's appropriate to set the precedent for this.
I agree. All right, that brings us now to item D8, which was C6, moved from the consent agenda. I believe that is the Mural agreement with the Chronicle.
Correct. I'm gonna ask Phil, here comes Phil, just a few questions. He was the primary liaison between the city, the DVDA, and Chronicle Holdings.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. So Main Street Design Committee and our Art Subcommittee was working with Chronicle Mill. Chronicle Mill actually hired an artist. They worked up a design. The design came to us to review. There were several things about the mural that we had questions and recommendations on making some changes to. And the artist basically said, no, this is my design aesthetic, and I'm not going to make any changes. But basically what we were asking the artist to do was put more reference into history of Belmont. There was a lot of figures that we questioned why that particular figure or image, and we offered some suggestions on some imagery and some other examples to try to give some feedback to make it more reflective of a nice mural in Belmont, to which, again, we refused. So during the conversations with Jennifer Harris, our point person at Chronicle Mill Holdings, basically said, well, can we just turn this process over to you, the DBA, and your arts committee? Y'all know how to manage this process much more so than we do. And so the DBA voted, yes, we would actually do that, and we came up with the agreement that, that was ruled, vetted, by Parks and Miles. And so basically, the agreement basically says that they would turn the mural process over to the DBA, that we could put out a call for artists, work with an artist, work on the design. They would write a check to the DBA of $25,000 for us to turn around and then hire the artist to do so. And I hear you, Jason, as far as, council involvement. We have no problem whatsoever with the design of that coming up even to council to review and make comments.
I just think it's obviously it's a very visible location in town, and I guess I was just curious. I know talking to some of my colleagues, we were just kind of curious about. Is there like a theme that you're going for? Like you mentioned, reflecting some of the history, maybe around like William Chronicle and the Mill and some of those things. Is that kind of
usually when you put out a call for artists, you can kind of give them some ideas or some images, colors, whatever that thematically allow them to get creative with their design work, and then you have 2 or 3 opportunities to make changes to that design. We did not get an opportunity up front with that first artist that the Chronicle hired to actually work on giving our inspiration to try to get a good design from the start. And so we would be able to start over now with putting out a call and putting out our inspirations for them to start the design work.
I guess that's kind of what we're looking for is what sort of inspirations or themes are you thinking about for that location? Not to, micromanage or anything like that, but just
we have we actually have, this was the original, this was, passed around. So the mural would actually, it'd be 2-sided. It would wrap, if you're looking at Chronicle Mill to the left, the parking deck, it will be the front of the parking deck and then wrap around the side. So we basically, he had some images of some objects and people and cartoon that we.
Is this what? I'm sorry, was
this was the first
that rejected what your thoughts were on, right? Okay.
Right.
So this would not be.
No. This was the artist the Chronicle hired. This was his rendering that he put forth that we then tried to work with on making some changes to. Aesthetically, if you just looked at it, it's a nice looking mural, but it didn't reflect the history of Belmont other than having the word Belmont.
Yeah, it's pretty generic.
Right. And so, so we would work with the artists as far as imagery, people, whatever we wanted to see as far as inspiration, we would provide to the artists for them to then take that inspiration to work on the draft.
Where was this artist? Was he local?
He was out of Charlotte.
Okay. Because I will point out that it's actually in the condition that it needs to be a local artist.
What define local? What is
Well, it doesn't define it in the condition. It just says local. It shall be.
It does say local artist.
Yes. The mural must be completed by local artists. That's what it says in the condition.
Okay, I didn't catch that. As far as local.
Yeah.
To me, local is
Well, I would certainly think
regional.
Charlotte. I would consider Charlotte local, but
Yeah, I would say, look, to me, when you're in the art world, when you're doing a call to artists, when you put out something for local, it's kind of a regional within the surroundings, communities.
yeah, but I just pointed that out. So, it's actually
Charlotte has the largest base of professional mural artists
but that
we've worked with.
Are there any in Belmont? Do we know?
I mean, I'm sure there are some, but something of this quality, a $25,000 mural that's a significant
I do it for $25,000.
And that, putting out a call for an artist at that cost point, you're going to get some professional artists interested.
I was just gonna add too, that while we don't have a specific list, there are some that might be not necessarily in Belmont's limits, there might be some of those as well, there might be some right outside. But I've had some talks with Ali Pisa, the executive director at the Gaston County Museum, and she has some working knowledge of local artists as well, and will be happy to work with us on trying to identify some.
The term would be 8 years, I think, right? For the, does it coincide with the term of the agreement?
Well, in agreement, what we talked about was that the mural would have to stay for at least 8 years before anything.
And that was discussed in the Main Street committees. I think it reflects the fact that the artist is going to want to not have his or her work modified or whatever.
And in agreement like that, when you're working at a mural, sometimes it's like you put in 5 to 10 years as far as the longevity of the mural, as far as how long it may withstand the elements as far before it's
So 8 years is pretty standard.
I pushed for 10, but 8 was what we also.
Just out of curiosity, for outdoor murals like that, do they put any kind of
They can be sealed,
Yeah.
but it just depends on the direction it's facing. Is it going to get the hot sun and rain, weather? It just depends on the elements. Right. So, as far as how it can be sealed to help the longevity.
All right, any more questions? Thoughts?
I trust y'all's judgment, but I'd be curious, I know I'm right now liaison to the Main Street Board, but I think it'd be interesting just to have council's perspective, just to look at what the final concept
Absolutely.
is.
Well, just as our facade grants come up, for final approval to you, this could as well. Or if you want to sit in on some of the consultations with the artist, that would be one thing as well.
That'd be pretty interesting.
I like the theme you're going with in regards to the Belmont, so I like that. I think that would be.
And if y'all have, images or thoughts, color, anything that we could present for, as part of inspiration for the call to artists, then, we welcome that as well.
If Elizabeth's still here, we could maybe incorporate one of those early police badges back in the early 1900s.
Something like that, yeah. The Chronicle, it's to be a little bit sensitive to the history itself. That is a pivotal point for Belmont when it comes to our history. So I think whatever they choose to do should reflect that.
And when you're working with professional artists, if they're really good at what they do, they're going to do their history, and they're going to do their due diligence and try to create a design that is reflective of the history of the area as a community. So, this particular artist just had his design aesthetic, and he was sticking with that, and was not willing to change.
Touching on the Elizabeth mentioned South Shore Boys. There was a pitch battle at Kings Mountain, a huge part of history, not just for our area, but for the country. So something recognizing that, and for me, I would love to see that, but I'm no artist. I'm first to admit.
I had a few minor edits to some of the provisions of the agreement that I provided to Parks, but we don't need to, they're like all just grammar and syntax, so we don't need to talk about that.
Can you forward those to me?
Sure, either I can or Parks. Or actually, I have a hard copy too, so I can give those to you.
All right, does that close this discussion? Any more questions?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
All right, motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you for that.
Bill, do you need more clarification of what they want as part of the process?
We'll just be inclusive of.
I would imagine, since if you read the agreement, it talks about we need to enter into a separate agreement with the artist. A lot of that, I think, can be covered in that agreement.
I'm just making sure.
Yeah. We will, let me see, well, in our next DPA board meeting, and Alex, they'll be part of that conversation, start, the Arts Committee starts moving forward with, language, we'll just send that out to all council members and let them go to participate and be involved, if you will. Okay. Thank you.
Alex?
I did.
All right, that brings us to reports.
I think inside the packet there is one report, but I have no idea what it is.
The planning.
Report.
Just for information.
Yeah,
Okay. All right, with that, then we will go into other business. Alex, you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I'd like to again extend my thanks to Marc, Mayor Seelinger, and Martha Stowe as well. Looks like she's left to their service to this community. Again, you know, they were definitely pivotal in a lot of decisions and a lot of things that we see today have come to fruition, and I think a lot of gratitude should be extended to them for that. Again, congratulations to Jason, Charlie, Richard, and Jim on your most recent election. I just wanted to kind of give a kudos to the Mont Cross Chamber and all of the volunteers and vendors, police, fire department, public works, I mean, everybody. The Christmas parade, I thought, was definitely one of the best that we've seen, well attended. I couldn't believe the barricades were all the way up closer to the middle of the road. It just shows kind of, one, the interest in our city and our town's traditions for sure. Outside of that, I mean, that's pretty much mainly all I have. I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving.
I did, except for the football.
Okay.
But things were rectified last Sunday, so things are rectified. Yes. Just a couple things. I received an email, I don't know if anyone else did, with some concerns about just generally speeding in the city, and I think it coincided with, I know there was some sort of incident, somebody turning on Main Street, and the sun got in their eyes and hit someone, but there were no injuries reported, I don't believe. But I did talk to Chief Falls about that, and I believe Captain Pullen is going to reach out to that individual. Obviously, we take these things seriously, and we've had our special meeting and our adoption of Vision Zero and all those things. And so I know, our police do a very good job, but they can't be everywhere at all times. But Captain Pullen's going to reach out to that individual. Assistant Chief Pullen, yes. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to demote you or anything. But similarly, I heard from some people in the vicinity of Page Primary, people that live down Ewing Drive, that sometimes in connection with dismissal, they have a hard time getting in and out. So I just said that I'd relay those concerns and see if there's anything that can be done. I echo Alex. I thank Martha Stowe and Marc Seelinger for their service. Martha's was on city council for 16 years. She's done a lot. I always thought that the mark of a really good council person, that I know there are a lot of things that she voted on where she might personally have not agreed with some or all aspects of it, but she thought it was in the best interest of the city to proceed with that. And I think that that's sort of a good, really a standard of what we should be about, regardless of, sometimes our personal thoughts and feelings. If something's for the good of the city, that's what we should be looking at. And certainly, I came in with Marc, and we sort of learned this whole thing of being a council person together, and went through COVID and all of that. And Marc's been a great colleague and done really good work, especially with the budgets. Every year, I think we've been really good about scrutinizing the budgets like never before, and Marc's to thank for that, and I wish him good luck in his future endeavors. and I'm excited to have Jason here for a full term now. I'm excited to work with Charlie, to continue to work with Alex, and to work with Richard in his new role as mayor. So I'm looking forward to all the fun and adventures in store for us ahead. When we talked about the parking lot at next police station, I was also approached recently, apparently in connection with the work being done on elevation. They think that there are going to be, Preston thinks that there will be some additional spaces available, maybe, I don't know, I heard as many as like 40.
Yes, I forgot to mention that, yes, that's correct.
And so I just want to put that on everyone's radar, and I know they said they'd approached the planning department about that, but, you know, I think since we are talking about, you know, parking being at a premium, that, you know, I just want everyone to be aware of that and hope that we can work something out that we can add those 47 spaces.
Where would they go? Directly behind elevation, sure, where it drops down, kind of a grassy area right now.
Mhm.
And I believe they said they paid for it too, right?
Yeah. So I just,
We were saying, I think planning and zoning was requiring formal drawings in order to do
Yeah.
that. And we were wondering if there could be some sort of relief from the formal drawings, if they're willing to put the cost up to give us some much needed spaces, surface spaces there.
Okay, so I'm trying to make sure that I'm getting caught up to speed here. So I know that we recently issued the zoning certificate of occupancy for Elevation Church, but I at least personally have not been brought up to speed by any other discussions for future parking on that lot. So it does not mean that they have not talked to another member of my team or gotten some initial feedback. It just hasn't made its way to my office, but I'd be happy to reach out to learn more and see what the next steps are.
that's, yeah, I think that would be good. Thank you. Sorry, I've got a lot. Having passed our new traffic calming policy, perhaps we can revisit our constituents on Poplar Street and the requests that they made. I don't know. It seemed as though unlikely that they perhaps fall within the strictures of the policy, but I think we should at least reach back out to them and re-engage, because I think part of their complaints in the first place was that they were not responded to, and it just sort of turned into a black hole. So I think this would be a good opportunity to reach out to them again and revisit that to the extent that we can. And the last thing would just be, we talked about the board reports, and there's a planning and zoning report, and I've mentioned this before, but you know, I do like to keep up with the goings-on of the different boards, and it seems like you know, we get fewer and fewer of those minutes, and I just think it's a good way for us to keep up with what's going on. So I, again, like to see more of those monthly minutes from our boards in our agenda packets.
So this being my first meeting, I don't have a lot of housekeeping items to pontificate as much as Jim did, but
Well, we're engaged in regulators, Alex, so yes.
I do want to take a second and kind of piggyback off what you guys said. But I've known Martha my whole life, and her service to this town will definitely be missed. She provided just a great deal of knowledge for Belmont, and that's something that we will definitely miss. And Marc, thank you for everything that you've been able to achieve up here. You've done a great job for Belmont, and I really wish you the best of luck with your future endeavors. And that's all I got.
I would also like to start with thanking Marc for your tremendous service and stepping up when we needed you most this summer. And I do wish you the best in your campaign and your future endeavors as well. And certainly the same for Martha, a long history of service there, both in our schools as well as in city government, and her service will be sorely missed. I do have a few items. This one was kind of unusual, but I heard from a couple of residents in Stowe Forest, and I was thinking, you and I may have talked about this, but they apparently recently have had a number of incidents with someone flying drones at night outside the homes and a couple of homes in Penstowe Forest, shining lights into the bedroom, into the windows of the home. Obviously very scary for the residents. I don't know that there's a lot of regulations yet on drone usage and where it can be used. I think it's kind of still relatively new. Body regulations around that. I don't know how much enforcement can be done, but I can tell you some of the residents that talked about their own method of enforcement. But I don't know if there's anything that can be done. It's obviously a very serious concern for safety and privacy.
Has it happened multiple times?
Yeah.
That's interesting. I never know.
Yeah.
I would instruct them to call the police on those occasions at all times.
I think they said they had, but there was really nothing that could be done because I guess there's no regulations around.
Let's talk after the meeting.
Okay. All right, will do. Let's see. The applications for the new Parks and Rec Athletics Subcommittee, can you remind me, are we taking or have we taken applications for that already? I had some residents express interest in that.
For the subcommittee?
Yeah,
They were reviewing applicants that had already submitted for the
for
board.
the board. But then they have a new subcommittee that was gonna have like residents participate in that and.
Right, so anybody that hadn't been appointed to the board that has applied
Okay.
for board appointment,
Yeah.
that was what they were first and foremost looking at, was those
Okay.
resumes or those applications.
So we can presume that subcommittee's already been filled, probably, or?
Well, it's going to be up to the Parks and Rec board.
Okay.
We will be looking at it this month.
So but the application window is
But
open.
we have the names, yeah.
But you're not taking any more applications, is that right?
Not that I know of,
Okay.
but if you know anyone,
Yeah, if they want, I mean,
yeah.
if you know anybody, just tell them to go ahead and submit an application.
Okay.
And I'll make sure that Zip and the team knows that's specifically what it's for. But have them, Mark, if you don't mind, have them email me, because then I'll know it's for that specific subcommittee.
Okay.
Otherwise, they'll get put into my bucket of people that are interested in just going ahead and serving on the board.
Board, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so.
All right.
And I can actually look to put, if I can put a subcommittee on there that they can actually just select in the drop down.
Right, okay. Next, I had some residents in Belmont Drive, even though that's not in the city limits, so wondering about what the plans are, if there are any additional plans on a permanent basis for the entrance there, the old entrance to Belmont Drive. Do we know kind of if there are any additional plans?
You're talking about, that comes on South Point Road?
They got it barricaded right now.
Yeah. I think NCDOT is, Tiffany might be able to need to help me on this one, but I think NCDOT's next step is to saw cut that area of pavement out and create a ditch line under there because that's a state road and South Point Road is a state road. So that's what I think it's on NCDOT at this point to remove that section of pavement.
And landscape bed?
The landscape.
Are you guys talking about where Belmont got realigned?
Correct,
with
yeah.
that? So we have been in conversations with Point Coffee, and I'm not sure who the new point of contact may be to continue that. It may still be Blake. But at that time, what they were working through was what happens to the changes in right-of-way with some of the different teams at NCOT. As we know, we want to retain as much right-of-way as currently exists as opposed to giving it back, because we know that one day we may need that right-of-way for the future South Point Road widening. So we've been working with them to determine what those lines would be, but ultimately what they have shared with us is that they would put it back as a ditch section, and then they would make sure that they seeded it strong and remove that temporary barrier at that time. But it's out of our hands and in DOT's hands. They've asked for some paperwork from the developer of the Smith Farm community, which has been provided. So it's my understanding that they have all the documentation that they need from both the city and the developer to move that forward. And we're just waiting to hear what else they may need on their end of things to get that to be scheduled.
Maybe that's not going to bring up at our next transportation committee meeting.
Sure.
Let's see. And then lastly, just a couple of updates I was curious about. One is, Chief, has there been any updates or Assistant Chief Pullen on the Belmont Town Center with some of the issues we were facing a couple months back with some of the students and the loitering and some of the other, has any of that And then you guys are doing special checks in the afternoons.
Yeah, we're continuing doing special checks daily, but we have not had any complaints lately from any of the business owners. So it seemed to calm down pretty good.
Okay, good.
But we will continue to monitor that area daily.
Thank you.
Is the inside school closed?
Yeah, they're keeping that close, like Chick-fil-A at least, yeah. And then the last thing I had was, Miles, remind me of where we stand with the proposed memorial on Keener Boulevard with Stephen Keener.
Yeah, that's in my hands. Next step is to contact the sign company and get them to do a sign rendering, and then get a proposed cost, and then determine where that location is going to be for the actual sign placement, whether it's going to be on city property or whether it's going to be inside private property somewhere. So in the process right now, but I don't have like a exact time frame.
Right.
To bring this thing back.
But we have the latitude to do that on our own versus having to collaborate with DOT to do something like that.
If it's in the right of way, then it'd have to go through DOT. If it's on private property, then we could possibly work with the private property owner to create an easement where we would construct and maintain the sign or the monument or whatever it may be at the end of the day. Yeah. And so there's a few locations and consideration for that.
Okay. All right, good, thanks. That's all.
Okay, well, I would just like to say thank you to Marc, of course, for your service at Belmont, particularly your work on the budget. Marc was very thoughtful and very thorough, and he brought a very keen eye to our budget process, and I appreciate that. For Martha Stowe, I've worked with Martha for almost 10 years, and I can say I appreciate her dedication and her passion to the city. I mean, for me, it was evident in everything that she did relating to her work as a council person. You know, for me, following Charlie Martin, it's hard to follow. Charlie and Doc Martin were iconic in this town and will remain so. Like I said, it's a hard act to follow, both Marc and Charlie. Marc, in his short tenure, succeeded in bringing us $11 million.
That's right. It'd be a tough record to beat.
And we set the bar pretty high. So, again, congratulations to everyone on the recent elections. The parade was great. I appreciate staff, the chambers, everybody's hard work on that. Following up with the parking in Preston, I heard that as well. And I hope that can move forward because parking is at a premium. Poplar Street is something we need to look at. It's a little bit more comprehensive than just traffic calming. Their sidewalks are in really bad shape. I mean, they are crumbling. I don't know if you all have been out there, but 20 years ago, the resolution to a bad sidewalk was like to do to a tire, put a retread on it, put more concrete on top of it, and that is deteriorating and it's cracking and falling apart. But yeah, there's some work to do on Poplar. Again, just thanks to the staff for everything that they've done, and that's all I have. So I guess at this point, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, all in favor? All right. We've got more for that.
Oh,
Stand adjourned.
King is dead, long live the king.